Commander Tae-hyun sat in the gray meeting room of the Earth Command Station, looking at the faces of beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. These creatures were not human. They had skin that shimmered like water, eyes that glowed with ancient knowledge, and bodies that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. The Galactic Council had called this emergency meeting to discuss something that made even these powerful beings nervous. The planet Kepler 442b was dying. 50,000 humans lived there, and in less than 3 days, they would all be dead. The Korath Collective was coming, and no one had ever survived their attack. Tae-hyun listened as Counselor Vex Thara spoke first. Vex Thara was one of the oldest members of the Council, a being that had existed for over 10,000 years. His voice was calm and smooth, like wind moving through ancient ruins. "The situation is clear," Vex Thara said. "The Korath Collective has never been stopped. They are perfect soldiers. They move as one mind, thousands of bodies controlled by a single consciousness. Our military forces have tried to fight them 17 times. 17 times we have lost. Our best weapons did not work. Our fastest ships could not escape. Our strongest shields broke like paper." The other council members nodded. Some looked sad. Some looked afraid. They were ancient and powerful, but the Korath had made them feel helpless. "Kepler 442b has a population of 50,000 humans," said Minister Kyung-soo from Earth. He was a political official, not a military man, but he had come to this meeting anyway. "We must send rescue ships. We must evacuate everyone." "There is not enough time," replied another council member. "The rescue ships would not arrive for 5 days. The Korath will be there in less than 3 days. We can save perhaps 5,000 if we send emergency shuttles now. The rest will have to stay behind." The words hung in the air like a bad smell. 45,000 people would die. No one said it directly, but everyone understood. Tae-hyun had been quiet this whole time. He sat in his chair, listening, thinking. He was younger than the other human representatives in the room. His face was calm. His eyes were sharp and bright. When he finally spoke, everyone turned to look at him. "What about sending a defense force?" Tae-hyun asked. Vex Thara looked at him like he had asked a stupid question. "A defense force would be slaughtered. The Korath fight perfectly. They know every military tactic. They move as one. Your soldiers would be dead in hours." "I see," said Tae-hyun. He did not look upset by this answer. "So what you are telling me is that the situation is impossible." "Completely impossible," Vex Thara confirmed. "We have run the computer models 100 times. Each time the result is the same. Every human on that planet will die. There is nothing we can do. We can only save a few and let the rest go." Tae-hyun stood up from his chair. He was tall, but not as tall as the council members. His uniform was simple and blue, marked with the symbols of Earth Command. He looked around the room at all the ancient, powerful beings. "I want to go to Kepler 442b, Tae-hyun said. "I want to land on that planet and I want to lead a defense." The room became very quiet. "That is suicide," said another council member. "You would go there to die, and the colonists would still die too. You would just add one more death to the numbers." "Perhaps," said Tae-hyun, "but I want to try anyway." Vex Thara leaned forward. The crystals on his body made soft, tinkling sounds. "Why would you do this? You are intelligent. You must understand that it is impossible. Why throw your life away?" Tae-hyun smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "Because you told me it was impossible. Where I come from, when someone says something is impossible, that just makes us want to try harder. My people come from a planet called Earth. We are not very old in space. We have not been traveling between stars for very long. But we have survived many things that seemed impossible." He walked to the window of the meeting room. Outside, the stars were shining. Kepler 442b was somewhere out there, waiting for him. There were times on Earth when my people had to survive ice ages. The world froze. The sun seemed very far away. Many species died, but humans did not. We found ways to survive. Later, there were times when big rocks fell from the sky. They were so big that they blocked out the sun. Many creatures died, but humans found ways to live. And there were times when humans fought each other. Terrible wars. But still, we survived. He turned back to face the council. So when you tell me that survival is impossible, I think about all the things we have already survived. I think about my people climbing mountains. I think about them crossing oceans. I think about them building cities from nothing. And I think that maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to survive this too. Vexthara stood up. His form was very tall now. You are brave, Commander Tae-hyun, but bravery is not the same as intelligence. The Korath will not be stopped by determination. They will not be defeated by hope. No, Tae-hyun agreed. They probably will not. But let me ask you one question. What is it? What is the worst that could happen if I try? Vexthara considered this. The colonists will still die, but now so will you. Right, said Tae-hyun. The same outcome. So if the outcome is the same whether I try or not, then I should try. Because the only way anything could possibly change is if I try. And if the outcome is not the same, if some people survive, then I will be glad I tried. The council members looked at each other. They had ruled galaxies. They had solved problems that seemed impossible. But they had never heard logic like this before. They had never understood humans very well. Minister Kyung-soo was writing on his communication pad. Tae-hyun could see the words moving on the screen. Kyung-soo looked up with concern in his eyes. The council will not provide a rescue fleet, Kyung-soo said. But they will give you permission to land on the planet. You will have a small military team. You will have supplies for 30 hours. After that, you are on your own. That is all I need, said Tae-hyun. Vexthara spoke one more time. I want you to know that you are walking to your death. The predictions are certain. The mathematical models have been checked by the best minds in the galaxy. You will fail. Tae-hyun nodded. He understood what Vexthara was saying. The council was smart. They were not wrong about many things, but Tae-hyun had learned something over his years as a commander. I appreciate the information, Tae-hyun said, but I have to tell you something. I hate easy missions. The harder the mission, the more I want to do it. So thank you for telling me this is impossible. It just makes me want to go even more. A few hours later, Tae-hyun was on a shuttle moving toward Kepler 442b. He could see the planet below him. It was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. 50,000 people lived there. Soon the Korath would come and everything would change. But Tae-hyun was not afraid. He was ready for the hardest mission of his life. The shuttle touched down at the edge of the main colony of Kepler 442b with a hard landing. Tae-hyun could feel the impact through his body. When the doors opened, the first thing he noticed was the smoke. The colony had already been attacked. Buildings were burning. The sky was dark from ash and dust. Tae-hyun stepped out with his team of 15 soldiers. They all had weapons and protective suits. They had arrived expecting a colony in good condition. Instead, they found chaos. People were running everywhere. Some were hurt, some were crying, some were trying to help others get to safety. The protective dome that covered the main settlement was cracked in several places. When the Korath attacked, they had attacked hard. A woman ran toward Tae-hyun's group. She was wearing a colony uniform and a medical band on her arm. Her name was Dr. Hana, the head scientist of the colony. Her face was very worried. "Are you the rescue team?" she asked, hope rising in her voice. "I am Commander Tae-hyun," he said. "I have come to help. But I need to understand the situation first. How many people did we lose in the first attack? Dr. Hana's face fell. The first wave hit the North Settlement. We lost about 20,000 people there. They did not give us time to evacuate. The Korath came down from orbit and destroyed everything. We have about 30,000 people left, but many of them are hurt. Most are hiding in the lower domes and bunker sections. 30,000. It was less than Taehyun had hoped, but it was still a lot of people who needed his help. Where is the colony leadership? Taehyun asked. The governor is dead, said Dr. Hana. The colony has no strong leader right now. Everyone is scared. They think the Korath will come back and destroy us all. Some people say we should try to run. Some people say we should surrender and hope the Korath will spare us. Taehyun knew that neither of those options would work. Running would just delay death. Surrender would mean certain death. But hope was something that could be created. I need to speak to everyone, Taehyun said. I need you to call an assembly. I need every person in the colony to gather in the central dome. Do it now. But we do not have much time, said Dr. Hana. The Korath will return soon. The computer systems estimate they will begin their next attack in about 30 hours. Then we have 30 hours to prepare, said Taehyun. Tell people to gather. An hour later, the central dome was packed with humans. Taehyun stood in the middle, looking at the frightened faces around him. Some were old, some were young, some were children. They had come to this planet to build a new life, to explore, to create something. Now they were just trying to survive. Taehyun began to speak. His voice was calm and clear. My name is Commander Taehyun. I have come from Earth Command. I know you are afraid. You have lost people. Your homes have been destroyed. The Korath attacked you and you could not stop them. This is a terrible situation. But I want to tell you something important. He paused. Everyone was listening now. The Galactic Council told me that survival was impossible. They told me that the Korath cannot be stopped. They told me that you would all die no matter what we do. They were ready to give up on you. The people in the dome began to murmur. Some looked sad. Some looked angry. But I did not give up, Taehyun continued. I came here because I believe something different. I believe that humans can do impossible things. I believe that you are smart and brave and strong. And I believe that we can survive this. How? Someone shouted from the crowd. How can we survive? The Korath are perfect soldiers. They destroyed our defenses. They came from orbit, and we could not touch them. That is true, said Taehyun. The Korath are very good soldiers, but they have one weakness. They are perfect. They are too perfect. They move as one mind. They think as one. They have no creativity. They have no ability to be surprised. And that is where we can beat them. Dr. Hana was watching Taehyun with interest. She was beginning to understand what he was saying. We cannot fight the Korath with weapons, Taehyun explained. We do not have the weapons to match their strength. But we have something better. We have minds that think in different ways. We have people who can solve problems in ways the Korath cannot imagine. We have the ability to be creative and adapt to new situations. He pointed to the colony around them. The engineers among you, I need you to work on fortifying the lower levels of this colony. Make them stronger. Make them into a place where the Korath cannot easily get to us. The doctors, I need you to prepare medical stations. The scientists and technical people, I need you to work on new solutions. We will find ways to hurt the Korath that they will not expect. A man stood up in the crowd. He was an engineer named June. He had worked on building many parts of the colony. Commander, what do you want us to do? Asked June. I want you to make this colony into a fortress, said Taehyun. Not with bigger weapons, but with intelligence. Make it so the Korath cannot easily move through here. Make it so they have to work harder. Every minute they have to spend looking for us is a minute where their plan is delayed. Dr. Hana raised her hand. I have an idea. The Korath seem to communicate through some kind of neural connection. If I could study the Korath that are on this planet, I might be able to understand how they talk to each other. If I understand that, maybe I can find a weakness." "Yes," said Taehyun. "That is exactly the kind of thinking we need. Start studying the Korath right now." Over the next hours, the colony came alive with new purpose. Engineers moved through the lower sections, planning fortifications. Medical teams set up emergency stations. Scientists began examining the bodies of dead Korath soldiers, looking for any information they could find. Taehyun walked with his military team through the colony. He showed them where to set up defensive positions. He taught them how to work with the colonists. He showed them that this was not going to be a normal military mission. This was going to be a mission where every person had a role to play. One of Taehyun's soldiers was a woman named Mi-sun. She had been with him on many dangerous missions before. "Commander," she said, "do you really think we can do this? Do you really think we can beat the Korath?" Taehyun looked at her and smiled. "No," he said honestly. "I do not think we can beat them in a direct fight. But I do not think we have to. I think we can survive. I think we can make it so hard for them that they fail. And sometimes, making the enemy fail is just as good as winning." As night fell on Kepler 442b, the colonists worked. They moved and carried and planned and prepared. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something new now. It was mixed with hope and purpose. In the colony's scientific station, Dr. Hana studied the Korath neural samples. She was looking at something that no one had ever looked at before. She was looking for the secret to breaking the Korath connection. And in the command center, Taehyun looked at the images of the sky above. The Korath would come back. That was certain. But when they came, the colony would be ready. They would be ready in ways the Korath would not expect. The research lab was the heart of the colony's hope. Dr. Hana worked without stopping, moving between different stations and examining every sample of Korath material they had. Her assistant, Min-soo, was a young man who had studied engineering and biology. He was smart and quick, and he understood what Dr. Hana was trying to do. "The neural connections," Dr. Hana said, pointing at the screen. "Look at how they are arranged. They are not like a normal brain. Each Korath soldier has a small connection point that links them to something larger. The connections form a web. All the information travels through this web to a central location." "The hive ship," said Min-soo. "They all connect to the main ship in orbit." "Exactly," said Dr. Hana. "And if we can disrupt that connection, even for a short time, the Korath soldiers on the ground will become isolated. They will lose their direction. They will not know what to do." Min-soo looked at the data on the screen. It showed electrical patterns and frequencies. "Can we create something that disrupts the frequency?" he asked. "Some kind of weapon?" "That is what I am trying to figure out," said Dr. Hana. "If we can find the exact frequency that the Korath use to communicate, we might be able to broadcast something that interferes with it. It would be like shouting so loud that no one can hear each other talk." They worked through the night. Other scientists came to help them. They brought more samples, more data, more ideas. Slowly, a picture began to form. The Korath used a frequency in the neural range. It was not something that human technology normally worked with, but it was not impossible to create. Dr. Hana and Min-soo designed a device that could generate this frequency and broadcast it over a wide area. "But there is a problem," said Min-soo. "We do not have the power to run this device. The colony's main power system was damaged in the first attack. We can run basic systems, but this would need much more power." Dr. Hana thought for a moment. Then she had an idea. "The thermal vents," she said. "Below the colony, there are hot vents that connect to the planets inside. They produce tremendous heat. What if we could use that heat to generate power?" "That would be very difficult," said Min-soo. "We would need to build new equipment. We would need to connect it to the devices. It would be dangerous." "Everything is dangerous right now," said Dr. Hana. "But if we can make this work, we can hurt the Korath. We can give Commander Tae-hyun the tool he needs." Meanwhile, Tae-hyun was leading a dangerous operation on the other side of the colony. He had discovered that the Korath had left behind a mobile command unit when they retreated from the first assault. It was buried under rubble about a kilometer away from the main settlement. "We need to get that unit," Tae-hyun told his team. "Inside it, there will be information about how the Korath command structure works. It will also have neural cores that might help Dr. Hana understand the communication system better." His team included Mi-sun, June the engineer, and several other colonists who had trained quickly to become soldiers. It was a small group, but they were all brave. They moved through the damaged landscape of the colony. The ruins were dark and quiet. Sometimes they heard sounds that might be Korath patrols. Every step was dangerous. When they reached the command unit, it was still partially active. Lights were blinking inside it. Systems were running, but there were no guards. The Korath seemed confident that the unit would not be disturbed. They were wrong. Tae-hyun and his team moved inside. The interior was filled with strange technology. Screens showed information in symbols that humans could not read, but in the center of the command unit, there was a large circular object that glowed with a soft blue light. This was the neural core, the device that connected the unit to the larger Korath command structure. "Get it," said Tae-hyun. June and another soldier, a man named Kyung, began carefully removing the core. It was heavy and complex, with many connections. They had to work quickly but carefully. If they damaged it, it would not be useful to Dr. Hana. Then an alarm sounded. "Korath patrol!" shouted Mi-sun from her position at the door. "3 of them, moving fast." The Korath soldiers came running toward the command unit. They moved with perfect coordination, their movements smooth and precise. Their weapons were already raised. "Go!" yelled Tae-hyun. "Get the core and run!" Kyung and June grabbed the neural core and moved toward the back of the unit. Tae-hyun and Mi-sun opened fire on the approaching Korath soldiers. The weapons made loud sounds. Light filled the air. One Korath soldier fell, but the others kept coming. "Move! Move!" shouted Tae-hyun. They ran out the back of the command unit, carrying the heavy neural core. Behind them, the Korath soldiers were following. Tae-hyun could hear their weapons firing. Dust and rock exploded around them. But then something happened. Seok-young, another colonist who had become a soldier, jumped in front of the Korath soldiers. He raised his weapon and started shooting. He was not trying to win. He was trying to buy time. "Go!" he shouted to the others. "I will keep them busy." "Seok-young, no!" shouted Tae-hyun, but Seok-young was already firing. The Korath soldiers turned their attention toward him. He was brave and quick, but he was also just one person fighting against perfect soldiers. Tae-hyun wanted to help him, but he knew what Seok-young was doing. He was sacrificing himself so that the others could escape, so that the neural core could reach Dr. Hana, so that there might be a chance at survival. The team ran back to the colony, carrying the precious neural core. Behind them, Seok-young fought alone against the Korath. His weapon kept firing until, finally, it went silent. When they reached Dr. Hana's lab, they placed the neural core on the examination table. Dr. Hana and Min-soo immediately began studying it. "This is perfect," Dr. Hana said, her voice excited. "This has the information I needed. With this, I can understand the frequency pattern. I can create a device that will disrupt their communication." "How long?" asked Tae-hyun. 20 hours, said Dr. Hana. "Maybe less. But we have to work fast." "We have the time," said Tae-hyun. "But we also have something else now. We have a purpose. We have something real that we can do to hurt them." He thought of Seok-young, who had given everything so they could have a chance. Tae-hyun knew that this chance had to work. It had to matter. Over the next hours, Dr. Hana and Min-soo worked with the other scientists. They connected the neural core to their equipment. They studied the frequency patterns. They began building the transmitter device that would broadcast the disruption frequency. The thermal vents below the colony were connected to new equipment. Power began flowing into the lab. The device started to take shape. It was made of many different parts, some original Korath technology and some human engineering. It was ugly and strange, but it might work. In less than 20 hours, they had done the impossible. They had created a weapon that no one had ever made before, a weapon that could turn off the Korath's greatest strength, their unified mind. But they did not know if it would work. They did not know if it would be powerful enough. They did not know if they would get the chance to use it. But they had hope now. And hope was something the Korath had never had to deal with before. The transmission device was complete. It stood in the center of Dr. Hana's laboratory, a tall structure made of salvaged parts and new equipment. Cables ran from it to the thermal vent system beneath the colony, drawing power from deep within the planet. The device was connected to an old emergency transmitter that still worked, though no one had used it in years. "It is ready," said Dr. Hana. She looked tired. She had not slept in nearly 20 hours. Her hands were shaking from too much work and not enough rest. But her eyes were bright with hope. "What will it do?" asked Taehyun. "It will broadcast a frequency that matches the neural connection pattern of the Korath," explained Dr. Hana. "When the frequency reaches them, it will interfere with their connection to the hive ship. They will become isolated from the collective mind. Without the collective, each Korath soldier will lose their tactical guidance. They will become confused and less effective." "How long will the effect last?" asked Taehyun. "We do not know," said Minsu. "Our models say it could last from a few minutes to several hours. But there is one problem." "What is the problem?" asked Taehyun. "We have to activate it from above the colony," said Minsu. "We need to place the transmitter on the highest point where it can reach the orbital platform. That means we have to take it to the communication spire. It is outside the colony walls. It will be very dangerous." Taehyun nodded. He already knew it would be dangerous. Everything they had done so far was dangerous. "I will take a team to activate it," said Taehyun. "We do not have much time. The Korath sensors show that their ships are moving into attack position. They will start their assault in less than 2 hours. "Then we need to move now," said Dr. Hana. They carefully lifted the transmission device. It was heavy and delicate. If they dropped it or damaged it, it would not work. They loaded it onto a transport vehicle, a sturdy machine that had been used to move supplies around the colony before the attack. Taehyun selected his team: Mi-sun, the soldier who was always reliable; Kyung, who had helped get the neural core; 3 other military personnel; and Jun, because he understood the technical aspects better than anyone else. As they drove toward the communication spire, Taehyun could see the sky above. The Korath ships were becoming visible, descending through the atmosphere. It would not be long now. The communication spire was a tall structure that rose above most of the colony. It had been damaged in the first attack, but parts of it still stood. It reached up toward the sky like a finger pointing at the stars. "Take the device as high as we can go," Taehyun told the team. "Place it on the highest working platform. Once it is in place, we will begin the activation sequence." They started climbing. The spire had metal stairs and walkways built into it. But climbing it meant being exposed. Any Korath patrol could see them. Any Korath soldier could shoot at them. Halfway up, Taehyun heard the sound of weapons fire. Korath soldiers had spotted them. The creatures were fast and moving up the spire from below. They climbed with inhuman speed. "Faster," said Taehyun. "We need to get higher." His team moved quickly, carrying the transmission device. The device was heavy, and the climbing was difficult. But they kept moving up. One of the military personnel, a man named Sung, was hit by a Korath weapon. He fell, and his body went silent. There were now only 6 of them left. They reached the highest stable platform on the spire. The wind was strong up here. The air was thin. Below them, the colony looked very small. "Set up the device," commanded Tae-hyun. Jun and Kyung began connecting the device to the old transmitter systems that were still partially functional on the platform. Their hands were shaking, but they worked quickly and carefully. The Korath soldiers were getting closer. They were almost to the platform. "Almost ready," shouted Jun. "How much longer?" asked Tae-hyun. 30 seconds, said Jun. Tae-hyun and Mi-sun opened fire on the approaching Korath soldiers. Weapons flashed, the air filled with light and noise. One Korath soldier fell, but the others kept coming. There were too many of them. Then a Korath soldier appeared right next to Tae-hyun. The creature moved so fast that Tae-hyun could barely see it. Its weapon was raised, ready to fire. This was the moment where everything would end. But something unexpected happened. Kyung jumped in front of Tae-hyun. The Korath weapon fired, and Kyung was hit. He fell to the ground, but he had saved Tae-hyun's life. "Device is ready!" shouted Jun. "Activate it!" yelled Tae-hyun. Jun's hand moved to the activation switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the device began to glow. Power flowed through it. The transmitter started to broadcast. The frequency went out in all directions, spreading across the colony and up toward the sky. It passed through the air and reached the Korath soldiers on the spire. It traveled to the other Korath forces attacking the colony. It reached up to the orbital platform where the Korath command structure waited, and something amazing happened. The Korath soldiers suddenly stopped moving. Their weapons fell to the ground. They looked confused and lost. The creatures began to make sounds, strange noises that they had never made before. They were trying to communicate with each other, but they could not hear the collective mind anymore. Each soldier was alone, isolated from the hive consciousness. "It works!" screamed Mi-sun. "It works!" The isolated Korath soldiers became violent and unpredictable. Without guidance from the collective mind, they did not know what to do. They attacked each other. They moved randomly. They were no longer perfect soldiers. They were just confused creatures, separated from the network that gave them purpose. But the transmission had taken its toll. Tae-hyun could feel it. He was dizzy and weak. His body felt strange. He realized that he had been standing too close to the device during transmission. The radiation from the process was affecting him. "Get me down," he said to Mi-sun. But as they prepared to leave the platform, a new Korath attack came from above. Ships were firing at the spire. The entire structure began to shake and fall apart. "Run!" shouted Jun. They moved down the spire as fast as they could. Behind them, the platform where they had been standing exploded. Pieces of metal fell through the air. The team reached the ground as the spire continued to collapse. They ran toward the colony buildings. Behind them, the communication spire fell to the ground with a tremendous crash. Tae-hyun was moving more slowly now. His body was not working right. The radiation sickness was getting worse, but he kept moving forward. Dr. Hana was waiting for him at the colony entrance. When she saw him, her face showed great concern. "You are hurt," she said. "Radiation poisoning," said Tae-hyun. His voice sounded weak. "From the device." "Get him to the medical station," said Dr. Hana to Mi-sun. As they carried Tae-hyun away, he looked back at the colony. The Korath soldiers were still confused, still isolated from their collective mind. The colonists were emerging from their shelters. They were beginning to fight back. The transmission had worked. Tae-hyun had done what he said he would do. He had found a way to hurt the Korath, to take away their greatest strength, their unified mind. But it had cost him dearly. As they laid him on a medical bed, Tae-hyun could feel his body breaking down. The radiation was eating away at his cells. He might have started something beautiful, but he might not live to see it end. Still, he smiled. Because the colonists were fighting. Because there was hope. Because for the first time the Korath were not perfect anymore. Tae-hyun was dying. The doctors knew it. He knew it. Everyone in the medical station knew it. The radiation from the transmission device had damaged his body at the cellular level. Machines beeped around his bed, tracking the decline of his systems. There was no cure. There was only time before his body stopped working completely. But the colonists were fighting. On the ground and in the sky above, they were fighting. The Korath soldiers, separated from their collective mind, were becoming weaker. The colonists moved through the colony ruins, using the advantages that the humans had trained to use. They were creative. They were unpredictable. They worked together in ways that the confused Korath soldiers could not match. Dr. Hana came to Taehyun's bedside during the midst of the battle. She was covered in dust and sweat from working in the medical station, but her eyes had a light in them that had not been there before. Hope. Real hope. "We are winning," she said. "The colonists are retaking sections of the colony. The Korath are disorganized. It is working, Commander. Your plan is working." Taehyun tried to smile, but his face was too weak to move properly. "Good," he said. His voice was very quiet now. "Good." "We are going to need you to recover," said Dr. Hana. "We are going to need you to lead us to victory." "I will not recover," said Taehyun. He was not sad about this fact. He was simply stating something that was true. But others will. The colonists will survive. That is what matters. Meanwhile, in orbit above Kepler 442b, the Korath command structure was in chaos. The frequency transmission had reached their orbital platform. The collective consciousness, which had unified thousands of Korath minds into a single will, had been shattered into fragments. Each isolated Korath mind was trying to understand what had happened. They were trying to reconnect, but the connection was broken. The Korath Supreme Leader, the oldest and most powerful consciousness in the collective, realized something terrible. They could not simply reform the collective. The human device was still broadcasting. Any attempt to reconnect would be disrupted again. The Supreme Leader made a decision. It ordered a bombardment. The orbital platform released kinetic weapons, massive metal projectiles that would fall on the colony and destroy everything. If the humans could not be conquered, then they would be eliminated. But Dr. Hana had anticipated this. She had studied the Korath attack patterns. She understood how they thought, even if she did not fully understand why they thought that way. "They will try to destroy the colony from orbit," she had told Taehyun before the transmission. "They will use kinetic weapons, heavy metal projectiles that cannot be stopped by normal defenses." "Can we stop them?" Taehyun had asked. "I do not know," said Dr. Hana. "But I have an idea. If we can modulate the frequency to create a resonance cascade, it might create an electromagnetic field above the colony. It might not be strong enough to stop the weapons, but it might be strong enough to deflect them." Now, as the orbital weapons fell toward the colony, the frequency transmission changed. Dr. Hana had modified the transmission pattern just as she had planned. The electromagnetic field formed above the colony, creating a barrier that twisted and deflected the falling weapons. Some weapons got through. Some buildings were destroyed, some people were hurt, but the colony was not annihilated. Most of the colony was still standing. Most of the people were still alive. At the same time, a brave pilot named Jiwon made a decision. She had been a civilian before the attack. She had been a teacher. But she had learned quickly how to pilot the salvaged Korath shuttle that had been captured when they took the neural core. Jiwon flew that shuttle up into orbit. Her hands moved across the controls. The shuttle's systems, which had been damaged by the frequency disruption, were now usable by humans. The Korath AI that had controlled it could not work anymore. She flew directly toward the Korath orbital platform. "What are you doing?" asked Dr. Hana through the communication system. "I am going to plant a virus," said Jiwon. Her voice was calm and steady. "I am going to fly to the platform, and I am going to install a program that Minsu created. It will lock their hive mind in permanent fragmentation. They will never be able to reconnect." That is suicide, said Dr. Hana. Maybe, said Ji-won. But my daughter is down there in that colony. My family is down there. I am going to do this for them. She flew toward the platform, avoiding the confused Korath defense systems. The scattered consciousness of the Korath could not coordinate a strong defense. Ji-won made it through. She landed the shuttle on the platform. She put on a protective suit. She entered the main structure. Inside the platform, the Korath were lost and confused. Without their collective guidance, they were almost helpless. Ji-won moved through the corridors, following the directions that Min-soo had given her. She reached the main neural nexus, the place where all the Korath minds connected to each other. She installed Min-soo's virus into the system. The program spread through the Korath network. It created a permanent pattern of disruption. The collective consciousness, which had been trying to reform, broke apart again. This time, it stayed broken. The Korath on the platform realized what had happened. They moved toward Ji-won, but they were no longer unified. They no longer had perfect coordination. Ji-won ran. She made it back to her shuttle. She flew away just as Korath weapons began firing at her. The platform's weapons systems, now operating without collective guidance, were inaccurate and disorganized. They could not hit the fast-moving shuttle. Ji-won escaped. She flew back down to the colony and landed the shuttle near the medical station. She climbed out, breathing heavily, alive and victorious. "We did it," she said to Dr. Hana. "The hive mind is broken for good. They cannot reconnect." Down in the colony below, the Korath soldiers realized the truth. They had been cut off from the collective forever. They were individual creatures now, without guidance or purpose. Some of them tried to continue fighting, but they could not do it. They had been designed to be part of something larger. Alone, they were weak. The colonists took back their colony section by section. The Korath soldiers were defeated or captured or simply stopped fighting. The battle was over. In the medical station, Dr. Hana sat beside Tae-hyun's bed. The commander's body was very weak now. His time was almost over. "We won," said Dr. Hana. Tae-hyun's eyes opened slightly. "How many did we lose?" he asked. 25,000 in the first attack," said Dr. Hana. "But we saved 5,000 from the North Settlement, and we saved 15,000 in the battles that followed. 40,000 colonists are alive." "We are alive." Tae-hyun closed his eyes. A small smile appeared on his face. "Then it was worth it," he said. Dr. Hana wanted to tell him that he would survive, that they would find a way to heal him, that he was going to be okay. But she was a scientist, and she knew the truth. Tae-hyun's cells were too damaged. The radiation had destroyed too much. But before she could say anything else, Tae-hyun's voice came again, very weak and very quiet. "The galaxy will think humans are crazy," he said. "They will tell stories about the commander who walked into an impossible situation and refused to quit. Tell them I said that humans do not know the meaning of impossible. Tell them we are the species that survived ice ages and asteroid impacts and wars against ourselves. Tell them that the Korath were perfect, but perfect is not enough. Creativity is enough. Hope is enough. People who refuse to give up are enough." His eyes closed. His breathing became slower and slower. But Tae-hyun was smiling, because he had done what he said he would do. He had proved that survival was not impossible. He had proved that humans could do amazing things.